Welcome to the Next Level Facebook Ads Podcast with Phil Graham. We help you master Facebook ads and give you an unfair advantage over your competition. Are you ready? Let's go.
Hey, what's up, podcast family? Welcome to the Next Level Facebook Ads Podcast, episode 318. I'm Phil Graham. I've got a very important episode for you guys today. We're going to be talking about Facebook ad scaling made simple for mid-2023. There are so many advertisers that are losing money, not only in general when they're running ads, but also when they're trying to scale ads. They're just guessing. They're scaling with no strategy or skill, or they think raising the budget is the only way to scale. That's not true. And so many advertisers are losing money because of it. So today, I'm going to share with you how we scale ads in mid-2023 because it's very powerful. And I also want to help you avoid some mistakes that many advertisers are making that cost them money. So I'm really excited about today's topic. And I wanted to start off by saying thank you. You guys, over the past 6+ years, have made this the best Facebook ads podcast in the world. And I truly appreciate that. I really do this for you. And I appreciate so much those of you who actually go and leave great reviews and share it with others as well. And I encourage everyone to do that if you like what you hear, because it helps get this out to even more people so we can hopefully not only help them, but also save them from being taken advantage of, which happens so often. So thank you guys again so much for doing that. And before we jump in, if you do want to get in touch, whether you're looking for some one-on-one coaching to learn ads the right way, or you want somebody to run your ads for you so you can do what you do best, just go to my website, philgrahamdigital.com, or you can DM me on Instagram at philgrahamdigital. I would love to connect with you and we can set up a short Zoom call. So let's jump right in, my friends, and talk about how we scale Facebook and Instagram ads in mid-2023. First, I want to share a couple rules that we follow when we're scaling. Okay, number one, you must know what's working and why in order to effectively scale. You must know what's working and why. Now, sometimes you'll have an ad that's working, but if you had to say why it was working, most people cannot. And if you're not sure why, you're going to have a hard time scaling, and there's a good chance you're going to lose money because of it. Most people get that all wrong. So you got to know what's working and why. The second rule is you must give it enough time to work as you're scaling. You've got to let it cycle through some of the audience. You don't want to scale and give something more budget or launch additional ads and then turn it off 2 days later because you're freaking out that it hasn't worked yet. You've got to give it some time and let it cycle through the audience. And rule number 3, you've also got to give it enough budget. Now, you could still do this on a small budget, but you need to give it enough time, even more so if it's a small budget. But as you're scaling, depending on where your budget level is, you want to give it a decent budget if it's working. And if it's not working, you obviously need to fix it until it does work and then give it a good budget. So those are some of the rules we follow when scaling. Now, let's talk about the nuts and bolts of what we scale and how we scale it. So the different ways we scale that I'm going to be sharing with you today are scaling by budget, scaling by audiences, scaling by creatives, and also scaling by objectives and optimizations. I'm going to start with the first most common one, which is scaling the budget. This is what most people know about, and most people do this when they're trying to scale. After this is going to be the stuff that I like the best, and I feel like it's the most effective, but scaling the budget is part of it. So one way to scale, of course, is to just spend more money. There's a couple different ways to do that. There's actually a bunch of different ways, but the two most common ways, besides what we're going to talk about after this, which are the best, but besides that, the two most common ways are to raise your budget one of two ways. Number one, let's say you're spending 20 bucks a day and you want to go to 40. You could just do that overnight. Just immediately change it from 20 to 40. Or number two, what's more common is they raise it up in increments. So you might go from 20 to 25. And then 3 or 4 days later, go from 25 to 30. And you work your way up to 40 or 50 or however high you want to go. There are some misconceptions out there. Some people think that's the best way. You should never just double your budget. That's not always true. We test things. And sometimes just doubling your budget works best. And other times, scaling it every, $5 or so, or $10, depending on your numbers, works best. So there's not one way that always works best. You've got to test that. But when you're scaling, looking at your budget and just spending more one way or the other, or even testing both ways, seeing which one works, and then doing more of that is a way to scale. So I wanted to start off with that, but I'm going to jump into the most important ways to do it because there's a lot that you can do here that most people don't do. And these next things that I'm going to mention are some of the most important and powerful ways that we actually scale. So the next thing that we scale besides the budget is we scale our audiences. So some different ways to do that is you can take your best creative. So take the video ad or image ad you're running that's crushed it. Hopefully you've got one that's doing great. If not, you've got to get to that point. But you take your best number one performing creative, the one that's proven, that's doing really well, and you can take that creative and scale that by sending it to 5 different audiences that you have not yet targeted. So you're essentially taking a known winner and sending it to 5 different audiences you've never tried. And the ad is going to be exactly the same. The creative is going to be identical. It's going to go 5 different places. And who you send it to can vary. Obviously you can test a lookalike. You can even have different types of lookalikes. You can test behavior audiences, interest audiences, obviously retargeting audiences. And one of my favorite, which is what I call audience stacking, where you can combine things. You might combine a behavior and an interest or two, and you can have different combinations of things. So that's a lot of fun. So that's a great way to scale your audiences. You're taking your best creative and testing 5 new audiences in 5 different campaigns or ad sets. Another way to find additional audiences to scale is look at your current best performing audience that you have and find out why it's doing well. Dig into the data and then find a similar audience, but still different, but very similar, and then send that audience your best performing creative. We like to do this a lot too. So we'll take our number one audience and we'll really dig in and see why it's doing well, and then find something that's not exact, but somewhat similar. And sometimes we can find a really good audience that also starts crushing it. And we're obviously spending money on that audience, and it's a great way to scale. Another thing you can do is take your best performing audience and you can expand that audience. Maybe you expand the demographics or you add an interest to it, but expand on the one that's working well. These are all great ways to scale when it comes to audiences. Do you see how it's more than just raising a budget? There's a lot more you can do. The next way we scale is by scaling creatives. So just like we were using the best creative and then sending it to 5 different audiences in the last step, scaling the creatives is going to be different. We're going to be looking for better creatives that work. So number one, what we do is we identify our best creative and we figure out why it's our best creative. That means that you've got to be good at evaluating data and comparing and contrasting to other ads you've run. And it might take a while unless you've already run lots of ads, but you want to know why it's working well. You also want to look at ads you've run that have not worked well and compare and contrast those and know why those didn't work. Then what we do is we take our best performing creative, our best ad, and we make anywhere from 5 to 10 different variations of that best ad, and we send it to our best performing audience. So it's kind of like the opposite of before. What we did before was we took our best creative and sent it to a bunch of new audiences. In this case, we're taking our best audience and we're using 10 different creatives that are similar to our best creative, but different. We are making changes to them. And typically what we do is we make one significant change to each ad. So for example, let's say you've got a video ad that's crushing it. It's doing really well. And you want to make 5 variations of that. Then we would do that and send it to your best audience. So 5 different ads going to the same audience. Each one of those 5 ads would be different. And there would be something that's significantly different, not just like one word. The headline might be different. The video might be different. Or it might be an image or the thumbnail or the angle or the hook at the beginning. But for each one of the 5 variations, they're going to be different from each other, but still similar to the theme of the number one ad that's been crushing it. Hopefully this makes sense. And then you send all 5 variations, or you could even do 10 to your best audience, and you're spending budget for that and scaling, and you're seeing what works and what doesn't. And so what you want to do is you want to have this philosophy. You always want to try and better your best and fix the rest. That kind of rhymes. Better your best, fix the rest. Find out what's working and why, and then try and get better results by tweaking it and doing split tests ongoing. Always try and better your best. And then the stuff that isn't working or not working as well, you want to fix it. You want to change it until it gets into the best column. And you can keep scaling that way. So those are some ways we scale creatives. And then lastly, we also scale ad objectives and optimizations. So the most common objective and optimization we have is when we run sales ads focused on conversions and sales, going to the website, for example. So we might have a campaign that's crushing it, and it's a sales conversions ad, and we'll take that campaign, we'll take the best ad, and we'll scale it by sending it to a different objective. We'll still run what's working. We're not going to stop what's working, but we're going to create a new ad using what is working. But instead of a sales conversions angle, we're going to scale it and test a leads angle with a messenger objective and optimization. And that's a great way to scale. So one of the strategies we do is we take our best ad, our best campaign, and it's a lot of times sales and conversions, and we test the exact same ad to like 5 different objectives. It might be leads. It might also be engagement. Another one might be video views. Another one might be traffic. And you'll be shocked that sometimes some of these other objectives work even better, and other times they don't. It depends. There's lots of variables. It's never just one thing that always works best. When you get good at this stuff, it's almost not even fair, especially when you get really good at evaluating the data. This is so powerful, you guys. So last but not least, another way to scale is to do all of these at once. These are 4 very powerful things: scaling the budget, scaling your audiences, your creatives, and your ad objectives and optimizations. You can do each one of those individually and scale, and it could be really powerful. But you could also do all 4 of them all at once if you have enough budget for it. And that's even more powerful. But don't worry, if you don't have enough budget for that, pick one of these or two of these things and start there and give it enough time. And then after a little while, you can switch over and try the others that you haven't tried yet. So hopefully you guys see scaling is way more than just raising the budget on something. You can scale and be amazed by what that can do for you when you do it right. It's so powerful for us, and I hope this was very helpful for you. So episode 318 is in the books, my friends. If you want to get in touch, again, my website is philgrahamdigital.com, or you can DM me on Instagram at philgrahamdigital, and I will talk to you guys on next week's episode. Peace out.
Thanks for listening to the Next Level Facebook Ads Podcast. Please remember to subscribe and share this with all your friends. For show notes, more tips, and to learn more about Phil, please visit philgrahamdigital.com/podcast.